today. Um, Today I just found this really interesting opinion piece from the Globe and Mail, and I just wanted to talk about it a bit because it's posted as an opinion piece from their editorial board. And this is quite interesting because the Globe and Mail is usually a center paper, like center in the political spectrum, and they don't really take two sides as often as other papers or news agencies would. But in this case, they're giving a pretty striking critique of the Trudeau Liberals and saying that basically Trudeau's government doesn't have an idea or proper lens as to inspecting the situation of our current economy. So, as many of you would know, this week the Bank of Canada cut its interest rates down by 0.25%, a basis point, meaning that essentially they're seeing inflation being curbed enough, and now they're moving into a sort of what you can call risk management phase for the economy, where they are now saying we've controlled inflation, we can bring the interest rates down now. But they're going to have to bring it down in such a way that it doesn't cause the economy to, they don't go too fast and let inflation come back up again, or they don't cut too slowly, where then the economy will be affected negatively. In short summary of what all the economics are, I don't want to get into it, but that's basically what it is, right? So after the decision, though, the Liberal Party posted on X that the cut was a proof of a strong economy. This was then in the article disputed by the Globe and Mail's editorial board, where it says those rose-colored posts are misleading. The reason that the bank feels able to cut rates is not because the economy is strong, but because it is weak. And for the record, the government's persistent deficits have made the bank's job harder, not easier. Now, for anybody who has taken a basics economics course or has done their basic research on how economy and how the economy and financial markets work, they will know that when the rates are being cut, and that is because the inflation is slowing down, but also it also means that the economy is being hurt because of those high rates. It's not because that, oh yeah, we were able to curb inflation now the economy is growing. No, it's because we raised the rates and now the economy is slowing down because we were curbing inflation, which is what's supposed to happen. It's the basic economic rules. See, as we further go on in the article, it says also one more point. They say that the deficit that the government is creating, well, it's not helping. Of course not. If you carry on more debt, you're going to have to pay more interest. So it's definitely not going to help. So the article continues saying the slack in the economy is increasing, as evidenced by the rising in unemployment rate, which hit 6.4% in June, its highest level since January 2022, which I might remind to you, many of you, that it was COVID, and that was the COVID lockdown time, lockdowns coming on and off during that time. A really crazy time for the economy, I would say. So it was not terribly surprising, the article continues, so it was not terribly surprising that the bank pared its outlook for the economic growth this year and next, even as it cut its benchmark interest rate by a quarter point on Wednesday. The falling interest rate is a sign of a chilling economy, not a thriving one. To be fair to the Liberals, that's true of an anti-inflation campaign, of any anti-inflation campaign by a central bank. What's different this time for Canada is the degree to which lower economic growth is being propped up by a surging population. Now, many Canadians are under the belief, right? Even I was up until quite recently, and still am kind of a proponent of, but basically the many Canadians have believed that, and experts, to some degree, have believed that population growth for Canada will support the economy. As we bring in more immigrants, they will take up more jobs, and they will fill the empty spaces that weren't being filled before by the current population, and they'll essentially help grow the economy. Because Canada is not a big country in terms of population, so they need people to work, right? And they need more people every year to work so we can keep on growing. However, this is not the case right now. With the surging population we're facing, our economic growth is not actually going as fast as they predicted it would. Now, my hypothesis on this, you know, contrarian, situation is that this is just totally from my end, could be wrong, but it's that immigration is happening. But the thing is, we're not bringing in the proper skilled immigrants that are supposed to be coming to this country. We're bringing in literally anyone who files an application, and most of the time, when I say that, I mean bringing in a bunch of students from across the world who are here to so-called study, but are actually just here to get the Canadian residency and take on low-income jobs while they try to get their points or whatever they have to do to get the residency here. They're not actually here to study. That's just a farce for most of them to get a residency in Canada, permanent residency. And they won't be skilled most of the time. They'll get their basic college degrees, which are basically worth nothing in Canada because the market is so hard here to get a job. You need so many qualifications nowadays that essentially they'll just take up the low-level jobs, low-paying jobs, whatever you want to call it. And that's not a way to prop up the economy, and that's no way for an economy to grow. And we're now facing the situation where the population is growing, but the skilled labor force is probably not growing. That's just my hypothesis, opinion, from what I've read. Could be wrong, could be right, could be misinformed, but that's what I think. So it continues saying, the article, even as the bank reduced its outlook for the economy, it boosted its numbers for population growth. In April, the bank forecast in its monetary policy report that the population of Canadians aged 15 and older would jump by 3.1% this year, but then increase by just 1% on average in 2025 and 2026. The bank said that its projection depended in part on a sharp decrease in net flows of non-permanent residents in the country, which I suspect to be student visas and student populations coming from foreign countries, right? Because most of the time they would have to go back then after their education is finished, or they try to apply for permanent residency, but they don't have it once they get here. They're here on student visas. So continues on that the bank as of now is now forecasting that the population of Canadians 15 and older will rise by 3.3% this year and 1.7% in 2025 and 2026. So it increased its outlook on population growth. So just to summarize now what the rest of this paragraph says. It says the population surge underpins an increase in consumption that is boosting economic growth this year. The bank notes that average household consumption is actually declining. The only reason for the increase in overall consumption is that there are more households. Without that population-fueled rise in consumption, Canada's projected GDP growth for this year would have slipped below 1%. The article is literally saying the same thing I'm saying right now. Population growth is not a sustainable way to prop up an economy. Just pure population growth. In that population growth, there needs to be skilled labor, there needs to be investment, there needs to be desire to spend, desire to consume, and all of that is not happening, as the article just said. Basically, we're just getting more people, so that's how consumption is growing. Not because it's growing by everyone is consuming more, it's just there's more houses consuming now. Population growth is disguising the underlying weakness of the Canadian economy. With economic expansion accompanied by the traditional benchmarks of a recession, Royal Bank of Canada addressed this apparent paradox in a report titled Canada's Economy Might Not Be in a Recession, but it Feels Like One. In it, the bank economists note that the rise in unemployment and the decline in per capita GDP mirror the patterns of recessions past. And who has been hit hardest? Who has been hit hardest? Younger workers. Unemployment among Canadians 20 to 24 soared to 11.1% in June, the highest level since June 2020, which was, as I'll remind you, COVID, when the economy was still reeling from the onset of the pandemic. That is what the Liberals Party calls a so-called strong economy. That is the situation that the finance minister says is evidence of the success of the government's economic plan. Now it's no mystery why the Liberals would prefer to talk about the growth in the overall size of the economy rather than such trifles as rising job losses, the erosion of Canadian standard living, or sagging productivity growth. There aren't a lot of options on the bragging menu after all. As I said before, the article will just go on as it just ends off here talking about interest rates are falling. Good news to be sure for those who are hit by higher debt costs. That's great. Then younger Canadians, whom the Liberals were supposedly aiming to win back from the Conservatives in their last budget, could be forgiven for declining to high five the government as they hunt for jobs. Meaning we're not getting jobs. The young Canadians are not getting jobs right now. The country's economy is in shambles. And this population growth that is propping up the economy right now is not going to last. But the Liberals just want to play the identity politics and, let me find a better word. They just want to play the show, the drama, okay? And make it look like they're doing something. When in reality, not much is going on. So that's the proper word for it. It's a drama show. And the government is trying its hardest to cover up what's actually going on under the scenes. It's like that fake positivity you get from those fake people around you, right? That is like, oh yeah, everything's all good. We're not going down. We're not sinking. Yeah, we're sinking. Let's get back to the facts and reality now and stop playing this little, everything's all right positivity, flowers and sunshine game that's going on for the past couple years here. And let's get back to as the conservatives would like to call it, the common sense approach and just do what needs to be done the right way. Thank you guys for listening to the video today, and please leave a like and subscribe, and I really hope you enjoyed my take or my rant on the economy. Thank you guys. Bye.